Oh, that's cool.
Like the old diagram. If we change that we get the
You should be a sun down, sun up person. Go to bed when the sun goes down, get up when it comes up.
That's not good.
I'd be.
Some days they
I don't like sunlight.
That's a good place to sleep.
base price.
Okay, while you're finished up with your bell ring, we're going to go ahead and get started with our nonlinear systems. Like I was telling Maddie a little bit ago, we're still in the quadratic unit. This is just kind of a little side note that goes with it because we still are going to be dealing with quadratics. When it says solving nonlinear systems, that means you're finding where two types of functions intersect. And you saw this on your last unit's project when we had a line intersecting with a parabola. Okay, so it still does involve a quadratic, and we still will have to use the quadratic formula some too. So this problem that we have written on the board, this is actually a parabola, the first equation, because it's got the squared, so it's a parabola. And the second equation is a line. So we're going to be finding the two, so we're going to be finding the two places, if there are two, where the line and the parabola intersect. Now it's possible that they never intersect. It's possible that it just hits it once, like on the vertex, and keeps going under or on top of it, or it's possible that it cuts through it twice. So our methods for this, we can do it by graphing, but we've talked about when we solve by graphing before, it's not always the most accurate because you might have to estimate where your point is, and if it's a fraction or a square root, that's hard to estimate. So then the other two methods are substitution or elimination. So what we would be looking at on something like this, where one of them is a squared and the other one is not. Everybody agree? We got a problem that's got a squared and one that doesn't. We would want to do that by substitution. So if I look up here on this first equation, it only has one y, right? It's got a couple of x's to deal with, so I don't want to mess with that because there's more of those. But it only has one y. So if I could take this second equation here and solve it for y, then I could just substitute it in the first equation. So what I would do here, we ready? I would subtract x from both sides of that line, which would be y equals negative x plus 4. Everybody okay on that? You just rewrote that line in slope-intercept form, didn't you? Everybody remember your good old x plus b? So now, since that's what y is, I can put that piece in for the y. I can substitute it in. Okay, so we're going to write, just copying down the quadratic as it is, x squared, I didn't change that, plus x, I didn't change that, minus, but now instead of y, I'm going to put what y is. And it's negative x plus 4 equals negative 1. Okay, everybody see what we did? Just brought all the first part of it down like it was. And then instead of y, I put what y was. Okay, now you can simplify this, because what's x minus negative x? 2x, right? So we've got x squared plus 2x. And then I've got minus 4, so that would be minus 4. Okay, now here's where we make the connection to what we've been doing. We need to solve this quadratic. So before we can solve any quadratic, if it's got an A and a B, we can't do it algebraically, we got to set it equal to 0.
Add the 1.
Very good, Sir Witherspoon. Add the 1. He's all about it. So that gets him an x squared plus 2x minus 3 is equal to 0. Now, I'm going to slam the brakes on for you right here. we're trying to solve that quadratic. You now know how to solve a quadratic by factoring if it's possible, completing the square or quadratic formula. You can do any of that, whichever way is your favorite way. Okay, I told you that when we started learning all the different methods. Once we got to this point, you'd be able to choose your favorite and roll with it. Okay, if your favorite is not my favorite, that doesn't mean either one of us is wrong. Just know I might not always do it the same way as you. I'm going to do this one factoring. This one is super duper easy to factor because I know what multiplies to make -3 but adds to make a +2. That'd be 3 and -1, right? So I can factor that real easy. If you did the quadratic formula, keep working on it. You'll eventually get caught up. I'm going to write this as x plus 3 times x minus 1. And then all I would have to do is set each of those equal to 0 and solve, and I got -3 and 1. Tori.
Okay, this goes back a little bit. But how did you get 2x?
How did I get this? Because I had 1x minus -1x.
Oh, okay.
That's okay. All right, now we've done good, and if you do the quadratic formula, you will get that. It'll just take you a few steps longer, but that's okay. We're not in a race. But I haven't answered the question yet. Those are both x's, and I'm looking for the place where my parabola and line are going to intersect. So I got to have ordered paired. I got to have x comma y. I only have x's. So I know my answer is going to be -3 comma something. Whoa, that was weird. Did y'all see that? And 1 comma something. How am I going to find those somethings? And the girls over here have already said it. Very good. I'm going to plug both of those in. Where am I going to plug them in at?
The top bottom.
Very good. I can pick whichever one up here I want. Which one looks like it'd be less work?
The bottom.
Right here, right? So my first x was -3. So -3 plus what would equal 4? -3 plus what would equal 4? You'd add your 3 to both sides. Wouldn't it have to be 7? Now make sure you write it correctly. The 7, whoops, come on. The 7 goes with the -3, so don't mix it up. Make sure you write it where it goes. Okay, now I got to go plug my 1 in. So 1, this was an easy one. 1 plus what would equal 4? 3. So I've got a 3 there. Winner, winner, chicken dinner. That's where the 2 would intersect. I hope so. I hope so. I knew you'd have some more before the move done. This is kind of stuff where when it starts all hooking together, you got to get it.
I still don't understand what you're saying.
Where did I get that 7 from? Let's go check it out. Alright, so you go back to one of your original equations like Garrett told us, and in either one of these, I got to plug my -3 in. I just chose to plug it in here, so let me get a new color so you can follow me. -3 plus what is equal to 4? So to get the y all by itself, to get rid of a -3, you just add 3 to both sides. You got it, sister. Anybody else? That's what I'm talking about.
Nothing else going in there, but I have a feeling there is.
Well, we're going to do an elimination one, but I think those are easy. Did anybody, when I did factoring, did anybody do the quadratic formula? They just all followed me.
I just wrote the right
Did you still get the -3 and 1?
Yeah.
Good.
I just did the same thing. I just didn't understand how to get the.
No, I work on our board.
Do whatever.
Very good thing. She's all over
I
that
just
thing.
like to be honest.
I appreciate that. Thanks, look it out for y'all. Y'all aren't even thankful.
What? Thank you.
For no reason. I didn't even do. Wait, so did you dye your hair dark?
It looks
It's good for fall.
But the tag was full.
I'm not, no.
No. Just keep it following.
No, he
One of these green.
him as
barely equal two
marshmallows.
Yeah.
I want those.
Can you choose different
Did I
colors
say
from black?
That's really
That
good.
bag was like
Yeah, I can pick this thing here and
Okay, so you can put more if you need.
Oh, deodorant?
What are you looking at?
That was deodorant.
Tastes like it.
Doesn't that very They been in his bag.
I have to. I did that temporary time. No. I did that last year. I did that last year. I thought I was going to orange. I say it's only black. I just stuck my hair in my brain.
It's like family code. I need
That was on
this
active.
one. I'm not kidding. It's so good.
Okay. I went over there to Wells because you said
Okay, look at these two. Shh. Look at these two. I discovered my favorite color in a marker, so y'all are stuck on orange now.
I like it.
2x squared minus 5x minus y equals negative 2. And then the second one says x squared plus 2x plus y equals 0. Okay, so let's first off talk about what type of functions these are. So functions means line, quadratic, absolute value. What type of functions do we have here? They're the same. Are they linear? No. They're quadratic, Hunter, because they're squared. At a kid, they're squared. So we got two parabolas. Okay, so just an idea. Let me scribble over here on the dry erase board. Just an idea of what it's possible to look like when two quadratics, two parabolas intersect.
Oh, I think I know.
They could intersect twice. They could intersect once. Could they never intersect? Could I draw one where they're never going to intersect?
Oh, that's sad.
Right?
Can you have two going up and then they cross like this? You know, where it's like that and that?
Like that?
Yeah.
So that one would intersect once for sure. Yeah, just once. I was going to say this one will get over there, but it won't because that one's going to keep going too. So Riley's right. That one would intersect once. So those are our options. You get all that, Marshall, on different answers. So we could get two answers like we did on the last one. We could get one answer, or we could get no answer. All right. Now, on the last one, we had a line, so it was easy to get a line all by itself. So thought process for you. Let me rewind. When you have, I forgot I scribbled. When you have a parabola and a line, substitution is the easiest thing to do. When you have two parabolas, elimination is the easiest thing to do. Get rid of one of the letters. And this thing is all set up for you to get rid of one of the letters. Can you tell which one? Which letter is easy? The Y's. I got a negative one and a positive one. So I can just add these and get those things out of there. Okay? So make you a note about parabolas, both two parabolas. It's easiest with elimination. 2x squared plus 1x squared is 3x squared. Negative 5x plus 2x is negative 3x. Here was our coolness, negative y plus y. That's nothing, he gone. And over here, negative 2 plus 0 is negative 2.
And then add the 2 and solve.
Very good. Get that thing in standard form by adding that 2. Alright, so choice on how to solve this one. This is just my thought process, and like Maddie said, most of y'all are just going to do what I do while I'm working with you. My thought process here is my A is not a 1. So my A is not a 1. I generally go to the quadratic formula. So that's what I'm going to do here. I'm going to go ahead and label my A, B, and C so you'll know what they are. My A is 3.
So B is negative 3.
B is negative 3.
And C is 2.
C is 2. So are we ready? X equals negative B plus or minus the square root of B squared minus 4AC all to 2A.
I can get that part every time. It's just not right.
You're just going to make yourself sing it 5 times and then you'll have it.
Just memorize it without singing it.
Alright, so that gets me, I already know the answer. I already know I don't have to do any more work. Hey, check it out. Shh, check it out. Figure out how I already know the answer. I'm not going to have to do any more work.
Because you got 2, 3, and 2, 3, and cancel them out.
No.
Is one negative?
Bradley's got it. What is my answer underneath the radical? What kind of number?
A negative.
It's going to be a negative, isn't it? Because I'm going to have 9 minus 24. 9 minus 24 is a negative number, which means imaginary, which means
It cancels.
they're not going to intersect. When you get an I, now directions here didn't just say solve the quadratic. If it had said solve the quadratic, we would keep going and we'd put the I on our answer. But what we're doing is finding where these two parabolas are going to intersect. So when you got the I, now you know they're never going to. So this is when you can keep going. If you didn't realize that like Bradley did, it's okay. Keep going if you need to. But at some point, you're going to get a negative underneath here, which you know is an imaginary number. So you're going to be able to say these two parabolas will never intersect. That means they have no solution. I kind of missed my 0. Let me try again. I can't hit it. Hey, there we go. No solution.
Wait, so
I almost like a tomato.
just one more time, just run.
One more time.
One more time.
Yeah.
No,
We're on the bottom
not
there.
that. That.
9 minus 24. 3 squared. 4 times 3 is 12 times 2 is 24.
Yeah.
So 9 minus 24 is what?
15.
Top it.
Negative 15.
I can't do math.
I put Tori on the spot.
Okay, wait.
She's on the spot. 9 minus 24.
But a lot of it's simple math in your head.
15.
What?
24 minus
9 minus 24.
Oh, 9 minus 24. Negative.
So the negative underneath the square root means there's an imaginary number. So that means they're never going to intersect. So there's no solution. If we had been told just to solve the quadratic and we got negative 15, we would write that as I square root of 15 and keep going.
So, wait, where does the negative
Got it. If you
get negative square root, right?
correct. Underneath the square root symbol, if we get a negative, that means there's going to be no solution on this. Well, actually, this would be 9 minus 4 times 3 is 12 times 2 is 24. So 9 minus 24 gives you negative. Well, this one's actually not factorable. If you tried that, 3 times 2 is 6. What multiplies to make 6 but adds to make negative 3? It's not anything. Always all on it.
I'm so tired. I don't even know what I'm agreeing to.
Then I hate things that don't know.
I bet Tori would like to smack him.
I knocked out her tooth. I'm not alive.
Hands to yourself. Hands to yourself. Alright, so check this out.
Grapes don't give you energy. Eat breakfast. You should tell Chloe that she needs to eat breakfast.
Breakfast is the most important meal of the day.
Never eat breakfast. It's terrible and useless.
Alright, check this out. Shh, this first one says y equals negative x squared plus 4. I'm going to start you on this and then you're going to finish. So listening to me as we get started together. Y equals negative x squared plus 4. And then my second one says y equals negative 4x plus 8. So first off, I've given you hints on when to do what. If you had a parabola and a line, I told you it was easiest to do substitution. If you had 2 parabolas, I told you it was easiest to do elimination. So what do we have here?
A line.
Okay, we've got one of each. We've got the first one's a parabola because it's squared, and the second one's a line. So it's easiest to do substitution. Pause while Tori questions.
I said substitute.
Oh, substitute. Okay, this one's ready to substitute. The one I did with you, I had to move something over. I don't need to move anything over here because everybody see it? Everybody know why it's ready?
Because this is y equals an x plus b.
Y is that. So just plug that in for the y.
Fancy.
Okay, so you're writing, everybody, negative 4x plus 8 equals negative x squared plus 4. Now, what you're going to try to finish on your own, you got to get that in standard form and then solve the quadratic. Either Factoring, quadratic formula, whatever's possible on it.
Oh, sorry.
And I'll give you just a smidgen of a hint. I think this one only has one answer. So it would be, if you got it, good. This one just has your one answer.
What I just need to.
You can move either way. If it were me, I would move this stuff over here. But you can do it either way. I just like my A to be positive.
Negative x squared minus 4x plus 4.
No, it would just be x.
This when I move this over, I had to add it, so it'll be positive x squared minus 4x, and then I would have to subtract the 4. So plus 4.
Uh-huh.
Sure.
You don't feel good? No. I hope you get better. I mean, I want.
I'm so like brain dead today. I don't even know what I'm doing.
I know what to do.
Did you get it set equal to 0 yet? Now you can either do quadratic formula or factoring, either one.
I like quadratic formula.
Go to town on the quadratic formula.
Wait, but then wait.
Did I do this right? But then you just get one.
If you factor
When I'm done.
what two
Same
numbers
thing, so it should be.
use?
Oh, that was so good.
Wait, guys, I got negative 2 plus or minus 5.
Genius. If you factor, which one are you trying to get?
Wait, I got square root of 13.
Okay.
Should have ended up being a 16 minus a 16. So
About her.
your
That's
B,
what I put in.
Multiply did this.
Yeah.
So multiply did
And
this.
adding that.
And added that.
So.
I made it.
Good job.
Oh, dang. Oh, so, so your answer's 0.
now underneath the radical is 0. So you'd still have,
Negative 4 plus or minus 0.
and it should be a positive. Remember the quadratic formula is negative 4. Your B is negative 4.
And then you plug this in.
You always make that the
So it'd
opposite.
be 2 and 0.
So your X would be 2. Now you got to plug that back into one of your equations to find your Y.
One more song that we're gonna sing.
Not any. I have some more that you're going to watch, but not any more formula songs.
One day I should bring it to finish now.
What is right?
I forgot about that.
I know there's that one.
It's not negative 2.
I'm only doing the basics, just
It's 30. That's more than anything.
These factors would be negative 2. It's not going to be
Would I
negative
look
2.
weird with a shaved head?
It's not negative
Because
2.
this is just a positive 4. So you don't have to make it. What you make plus minus, you're getting out of here. You don't have anything. So you just going to do 4 over 2 in the basis. You go plug it back in. Yes, good job.
I never got to finish.
X is 2. What you got? Bella. Let's figure it out. When you add that X squared, you can't combine it with that because this one's on a square. So it's just going to be 1x squared, and then you'll still have the minus 4x. Okay, first thing. So you would do the 2 squared is 4, and then you do that square. So you got negative 4 plus 4. Alright, so first thing I need to do to get caught up with you is put my equation in standard form. And this is what I was telling some of the hoodlums over here. You can do this either way. Shh. Y'all listen? Gotta be river. You can move the 4x and the 8 over, that's fine. I preferred to move the negative x squared and the 4 over because y'all know I like my a to be positive. So if I move that negative x squared over, I'd have to add it, it would become positive. Okay, then I still have my b there, minus 4x. And now to move this 4 over, I have to subtract it. And look, it's got a buddy to subtract from. So 8 minus 4 is a positive 4. So there's your standard form. Now, that can go either way. I saw some people do the quadratic formula. Check, check, check. I saw some people factor. Check, check, check. So you can do that either way. Factor real fast. What multiplies to make 4, but adds to make negative 4. Ding, ding, ding. Now, do I have to write that twice? I can, but I don't have to. Just set it equal to 0 and solve, and you got an x of 2. Which is what you got on the quadratic formula. Now, most everybody that I initially checked, that's where they stopped. I'm not done, am I, Hunter? What do I need to do to finish?
Yeah, play it back.
Add a kid. Either one, it doesn't matter. I usually do the linear one because it's more simple, but I watched Kaysen do the quadratic one, and he got the right answer also, so it doesn't matter. I'm going to say y equals negative 4 times 2 plus 8. So that's negative 8 plus 8, so that is
0.
0. So the place these dudes intersect is at 2 zeros. Yahoo! Yahoo!
I'm sorry, just ignore it. I'm so tired.
Oh, guess what?
What?
I find myself saying correct the mundo.
Correct the
All the
mundo.
time.
All the time.
All the
And
time.
Chloe goes turning. You're turning.
Hey, that's a cool thing.
Yeah.
No.
I mean, you're pretty cool.
Chloe!
I mean, hey, like, I don't need 2 of them.
Attention students, Ms. Burrington will open up the sale of the Live Pure Vita bracelets to other classes starting tomorrow. Today the library is closed during lunch for a Beta Club meeting. All new Beta members need to attend this meeting. If you signed up to make masks next week for the homecoming dance, please see Ms. Burrington sometime today. Thank you.
I'm just an honor society.
I'm gonna get worried about signing up for stuff. You know?
No, beta club. Google Classroom.
Why? Yeah, that might be amusing. Go ahead.
What a loser.
I think I should bring my ukulele one day and we can sing that song.
I want to bring mine too.
I got that one. I heard you play ukulele.
I have one too.
Hey, just tell me when you're doing it, because I'll.
That's the day Garrett's taking off.
Wait, did you get this?
I mean, the first day is pretty bad.
Oh,
Because I don't like math.
oh, good.
Alright, check this out. Holy cow. That first equation, we have not seen one like. Does anybody have a guess what family that would be?
A circle. It's a circle.
Ding, ding, ding. It's actually in the conics family. Okay? So here's what we know. Listen, listen, listen. Shh. If both variables are squared, you with me? Both variables are squared. We're in the conics family, which means either circle or ellipse. So that would be either a circle or an ellipse, either one. And we will learn which one more specifically later, but that would be either a circle or an ellipse.
I can't believe I got that.
That's, I mean, if I had a Tootsie Roll, I'd give you one. but
Isn't
I
a lips like?
don't. Ellipse is like an oval.
That's kind of
Oh, so it's like.
Yeah.
Got it.
That was a weird little oval there, but anyway.
What's the factor?
The lips? Or hers. Yeah, that's
I
why I
was
said it was
trying to
weird.
get around there. But
Okay,
I didn't.
what's the second equation?
a line.
Yeah, it's a line, it's
Okay,
linear. So we could possibly cross twice. We could,
I thought you were saying no solution.
I was trying to. We could cross once, or we could cross never. So we've got the same options for solutions out of this. There could be 2, there could be 1, or there could be none. All right, so ideas on what to do here.
Did you plug in the Y into the Y square?
Okay, now, and that is really the only thing we can do, what Laney just said, since this is Y, we're going to plug it in there. But you're going to see now this become a much more complicated problem, because after we plug it in, look at what we got to do to it.
Square.
We got to square it. So let's get going on this. This will give me, it's copying down the first one, x squared plus, instead of y, I'm going to write negative 3x plus 10, and then I got to put that squared on it, is equal to 10. All right, now here's a major mistake. That negative 3x plus 10 squared does not mean 9x squared plus 100. No way, Jose. You do not just get to distribute that to both of them. Anytime you have a whole quantity squared, that means you have to write that quantity twice.
Pretty much times it about 2.
No?
Because you're squaring
You're-
it, you're not.
Right. So, negative 3x times negative 3x, 9x squared. Negative 3x times 10, negative 30x. 10 times negative 3x, negative 30x. 10 times 10, a hundo. Now here's what Garrett was talking about that he was a little bit right on. What do you get when you combine those like terms?
Slow down.
It cancels. Oh, it's negative 60.
Negative 60x.
Plus 100.
Alright, so on the smart board where I have this, I got to rewrite that. This, that, here, there.
So you're not allowed to just put it in the calculator. You gotta do this.
What are you putting in the calculator?
I was just wondering if we could put the little thing in the parentheses.
No, because what happens on your calculator is they assign some arbitrary value to x, and it will try to give you an answer. Like you'll get, it's, yeah, you can
Yeah, I
get,
got 400.
yeah.
I'll pretend I didn't get that.
Yo. How do you get the wrong name tag back?
It's mine, but it's the old one.
Oh.
But
well,
I think
your
I've been
photo.
wearing this for 3 days now since I've been back and no one's noticed, so.
That's what I do when I forget my name.
Well, don't tell people that.
Who's gonna tell?
Well, it's been 3 days. And I don't
Don't
care.
care.
Really, I
Don't hang
can't.
back.
Alright, so there's what where I am. Okay. What do you think now? Good. Hunter, right here, I got a 1x squared and a 9x squared. So that makes a 10x squared. There's one more thing I can do.
Can you?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
I'm going to put this thing in standard form.
0.
So that would make that. Okay, now let me tell you where we are. Because you could just take that like it is, have an A of 10, a B of negative 60, and a C of 90, and go solve that in the quadratic formula. If I were doing this on my own, I would do exactly what Laney Joe said. I could divide each of these by 10 and get some much more simple numbers to work with. So I'm going to bless you. I'm going to rewrite this as 1x squared minus 6x plus 9 is equal to 0. That was not necessary. If you already started here with an A of 10, a B of negative 60, and a C of 90, and you use the quadratic formula, it will work. Okay, but look at what I've created now. This is factorable. What multiplies to make 9, but adds to make negative 6?
3 and 3.
Negative 3 and negative 3, which would get the answer Garrett said, because if x minus 3 equals 0, that would mean x has to equal 3. Okay, so think about the ugly pictures I drew up there on the top. This circle and line are just going to hit once. I think in geometry, was that called tangent? If it just like laced it on the side like that? Alright, we need the y. So can I scroll back up here and look at one of my original ones? Which one you want to plug? I see which one I want to. Yep, that bottom one. Negative 3x plus 10. So y would equal negative 3 times 3 plus 10. So that's negative 9 plus 10. So my y has to be Uno.
Okay. Where do we plug that in?
I plugged it in the linear one that said y equals negative 3x plus 10.
So you get 3 1.
Uh-huh. Grant, did you get all that? That'd be a big fat no. Man.
I did not take a look.
Well, that's unfortunate. I fell asleep before the Nationals even got done beating the crap out of the Dodgers.
It would have been the 10th inning, too.
Was it? Dang, I fell
Grand slam.
asleep.
Hit
Oh,
a
that's
grand slam
exciting.
in 10. 7-3.
Man. I hadn't even got home yet, and the Cardinals had already scored 10.
And that's the
What the
record.
Oh, yeah.
I was waiting for them to be like a little T-ball league. 10 after 1, that's game.
That was the first inning too.
Okay.
Wait, no, this is the idea. I bring my ukulele. Chloe brings her ukulele. Alyssa brings her ukulele. We play in unison and we sing a song, put it on YouTube. And then you
Great.
show
For real.
I'm down.
I don't want to play ukulele.
Okay, then me and Alyssa.
Then you can just do the singing.
I will.
Yeah, she's a good singer.
I like it.
And then we can like do a remix
Give us
of
some presentation.
and we can do that backup dancers.
Yeah.
You can dance or you can back up dance.
Yes. Okay. This is gonna be it.
It's a look.
Can we remember?
That's right. When can I go pee?
Oh, we got one more word on that.
I really gotta go.
Man.
Bad.
Alright, last one we're going to look at. Last one we're going to look at. And this one is the easiest one of the day.
Yay! I did a lot.
Let's think about, before you already tell me the answer, because you can tell me the answer that fast.
I can't.
Let's think about what two families, what kind of graphs we have.
We have a.
Okay, the first one, the first equation would be what? It's a quadratic, it's got one squared,
Got it.
so this one's a parabola.
Got it.
What is this? What kind of line? This one's a more specific kind of line. It's a horizontal line.
Yeah.
Okay, so for me to have a parabola and a horizontal line, what are my options? It could cross it twice. It could just cross it once at the vertex or never. Okay, but this one is set up perfect. It tells you exactly what y is.
5.
So all you have to do is take 5,
Plug it in.
and then solve for x.
Come on, guys. I'm really gonna pee.
Wait.
Yeah,
How do you do that?
close, we can do it.
X minus
Ooh, don't you gotta do it.
You gotta write x minus 3 twice.
X equals positive 3, right? Or did I have to do that completely wrong? I probably did it wrong. Lindy, what did you say? I got x equals positive 3, but I thought this
and we have 5.
Yeah.
X squared.
Now can I go ahead and do what Garrett knows? Negative 3x and negative 3x is going to make negative 6x?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
That's 14. You got 5x equals x squared minus 6x equals 14. Or plus 14.
Okay, well, equals 5 and 5.
Wait, where did you have
X minus 3.
My negative 3 becomes negative 3.
And then when you bring the 5 over, so it's actually negative 5. So it's negative, or 9.
Wait, where'd you get the 6 from?
Negative 3x and negative 3x.
Oh, see that.
I just canceled it real quick.
No, just do stuff.
Oh, yes. What Lady Jo said is she canceled the 5s out first, and that would have worked.
Yeah, because then I just had x minus 3, and I know that's how you do for factoring, and so then I did x equals.
Okay?
Wouldn't it be 3?
Okay, so what we're looking at now is the quadratic formula or factoring. So what multiplies to make 9 but adds to make negative 6?
3.
Negative 3 and negative 3. So if x minus 3 equals 0, that means x equals 3. So our answer would be,
X equals 3 and y equals 5.
yes sir, just like that.
That's easy.
I like it a lot. We had a good day. Alright, if you have graph paper, tomorrow's the day to bring it. If you don't worry about running to Walmart or Dollar General and buying any. You'll just have to make do on your notebook paper. You can. But if you've got graph paper, tomorrow's the day to bring it. Okay?
Chloe, how many groups do you think was in that bag?
Maybe like,
Can I go down this way?
Yes.